Welcome back to the week, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have the pleasure of sitting down with a young lady here that I am just flabbergasted and in awe as we were talking before we came on. Let me go ahead and introduce who my guest is for this segment. I am being joined today by none other than Dr. Margarett B. Wilson. Dr. Wilson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, it is a pleasure for me to be able to sit down with such a tremendous individual as I continue to celebrate and showcase African Americans that are movers and shakers in our communities and surrounding areas. And you are definitely one of those persons. But if you don't mind, Dr. Wilson, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a physician. I'm actually retired now. I worked over 25 years as an assistant professor at Emory, but I worked at Grady Hospital. You may have heard of one of the largest hospitals in the Southeast, and I took care of the employees there. Okay. So whenever the other nurses, doctors got sick, I took care of them. But that was my last job. I'm originally from Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta, and went to medical school at the University of Minnesota. I also received a Master's of Public Health from Emory University and Morehouse School of Medicine, Preventive Medicine.
Wow.
Residency.
Awesome. I was looking at your bio and I was like, okay, I'm gonna need more time.
Well.
Because there's so much here that I want to dig into. And what really got me when people look at the beautiful young look on your face, and you were telling me that, you know, before we came on, that you actually pick cotton for $2 a day. Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Well, I grew up in the 50s, 60s, early 70s in North Mississippi, up near Tunica, Mississippi. You may have heard of Tunica as one of the poorest areas in the country. Now they have a lot of casinos there. But I grew up in Hernando, which is about 14 miles from Tunica. And my family was very poor. We were small. We grew cotton, but we only had about 5 acres, and so that only made about 5 bales of cotton a year. So to help supplement our family income, as children we picked cotton, or teenagers especially, and we would get on a truck and go down to the Delta, and we would get paid $2 a day. So we would either pick cotton or what we call chop cotton. Really, it wasn't chopping the cotton down, but cleaning the cotton out. And so you would work all day for $2. And if you had to have a lunch, you had to buy your lunch out of that $2. Wow. So, you know, you could only afford to maybe spend a quarter for lunch. So that might be some crackers and some pork and beans or Vienna sausage or something. But, you know, I learned during that time that there's got to be a better way to live than this. And one of those days in the field when it felt like 105 degrees, I said, I've got to do something.
You got to get out of here.
I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And so, you know, that along with a lot of other things really motivated me to try to go on and get my education, to work hard in school. And I was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship to college from a science project that I did. And I say to kids all the time, you know, when they're doing science projects, that you never know what it's going to lead to.
That's right.
Because my science project allowed me to get a full scholarship to Alcorn State University.
Very good. You know, such an inspiration, the story here. And I was looking at, as I stated, I was looking at your bio. Not only did you attend and graduated from Alcorn State University, but you graduated cum laude? Yes. Wow.
I did. I did. And I was a member of a sorority there, a Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and Dean of Pledges for one of the semesters, but also was one of the original Golden Girls at Alcorn. Now, some people who are not at HBCUs may not know what that is, but the Golden Girls were the majorettes that were out front, and you know, kind of the year that I was a Golden Girl was the first year that they've kind of, now there's a lot been written about it and on social media about the first set of Golden Girls, and I happen to have been one of those.
Very good.
But yes, I graduated with honors from Alcorn.
Wow. You know, and as we showcase African Americans, and in your book we're going to talk about in just a moment, and there was a word that we talked about, foundation.
Yes.
Talk about how important for our kids of today and in your time, in my time,
Right.
of having that good foundation. Talk about the
Right.
importance of having that foundation.
Well, it is just so important, and when I talk about foundation, I just think back to so many things. The church, my Sunday school teacher, the people, the deacons in the church who taught you about having faith and taught you about the 10 Commandments and just knowing how to treat people and to be a good neighbor and a good person.
Mm-hmm.
But then the foundation goes on to having family who are your foundation. Your parents, my parents were always supportive of whatever I tried to do. And then going on to college, I found that the professors and all there were just supportive. They were the ones that kind of, and I would say this about Alcorn, I can't say this about all schools, but they took us under their wings.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you know, what can I do to help you? I remember my advisor saying to me, what are you going to do when you finish Alcorn? What are you going to, how are you going to, what job do you want to do?
Planning ahead.
Right, planning
Mm-hmm.
ahead, having that foundation, thinking about it. Start planning what classes you need to take. And that was the first person that planted the seed about being a physician, was when I got to college.
Mm-hmm.
But even back when I was in high school, our science teachers, and of course I thought at the time that they were being just really too hard. But when I think back, they gave me that foundation in science, biology and chemistry, and that went over to college, to
Mm-hmm.
being able to major and to know how to study and to be an honor graduate on into medical school,
Mm-hmm.
which all of that started with having that foundation of all of those things kind of pulling together, and mentors,
Mm-hmm.
of course.
Absolutely.
That's very important.
Very good. You know, we were talking before we came on, and people here, and you know, we called you doctor, and of course we always got asked us, what was kind of one of your most favorite or scariest things or exciting, and you would tell me about when you delivered your first baby.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, when I went to med school, we have different periods where we do our coursework in different areas, pediatrics or obstetrics and gynecology. And so my older sister is deaf,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned sign language when I was about 4 or 5, so I can communicate in sign language. And the very first patient, the first day that I went on my obstetrics and gynecology rotation, was a deaf lady. And she came in, she was in full labor, about to deliver. And so my mentor, the doctor that I was working with, he said to me, you know what, and I said something to her in sign, and he said, oh, you know sign? You know what, this can be your first delivery. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, I'll walk you through it. And so I didn't get a chance to talk to her very much. I just went through, you know, he told me what to do and delivered the baby. I was so excited, went out and bought the baby an outfit the next day or so. But fast forward, a year later, that doctor sent me a letter saying that the mom had been in and she had brought the baby. They sent me a picture and said she wanted you to have a picture. He's a year old now.
Wow.
Fast forward another year, and my sister came to my graduation from med school, and she said, well, she's got a good friend that's going to come over. And I thought, oh, okay. So the door rang, and I went to the door, and the lady at the door says to me, you're familiar. And then I look, and there's a little boy who is the same little boy that's on that picture.
Oh,
my
my
sister's roommate from college was my first delivery. Her baby was my first delivery. And I mean, that was just amazing.
Amazing.
Of all the people in the United States that my sister's roommate had been
Wow.
the very first delivery.
The very first.
And so I caught up with him a year or two ago, and he's got a grandbaby.
Wow,
So-
very good.
So that was
Awesome.
just kind of I talk about that in the book, how interesting it was that it happened that way.
Absolutely. Also, you're an inventor. It seems like there's nothing that you haven't done.
Well,
Talk a little bit about, you created
Snazzy Napper. Yes, the Snazzy Napper is a patented product. I actually have 2 patents on it, but it is a patented product. It's a blanket, it's a travel blanket, and it has a blanket portion and an eye mask portion to it. You can use them separate, or you can connect it. If you're traveling, say, for 8 or 10 hours and you just want to totally cover yourself up like in a cocoon and sleep, you can use it. It also, if you want to turn it, I designed it so that it would fold into itself, and it turns into a little pillow that's about 12 inches by 6 inches. So you could use it as a pillow if you like. But I did get some worldwide acclaim. I sold it in Australia, Paris, London, a lot of places, as well as in the United States. But was on CNN with it, and Ellen DeGeneres. Quite a few people featured it.
I was about to say, there's a
on their
list
show.
of. That's right. I'm looking at this list of. That's why I'm honored that we have you here. Wow.
Yeah, well, some of it was, they poked a little fun at it sometimes, but it was.
It's all in fun, though.
It was all in fun.
And all in the bank now.
That's right.
That's right. And the last thing we want to talk, you also are the author of a book, Blackberry Memories, the unforgettable story of a little girl's foundation.
Right.
Faith, favor that led her to a life of joy from a world of poverty.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit as we close.
Well, the book, this is the book, and it's and it just was released a few weeks ago. And I wrote the book to just talk about some people that had intersected my life. It took about 20 years altogether, because some things in the book were very painful, and I'd started to write about them, and it just brought back such almost bad memories that I couldn't continue. But the last year or so, I just decided I'm going to push forward and go ahead and finish it. But it talks about people who, just about growing up in the South in the 50s, 60s, 70s, some of the hardships. We really, my family, when I say we, didn't have the basic necessities. We didn't have running water in my house. We had outdoor restroom facilities. We had to get our water from a lady that lived up the street in, gallon buckets. We'd carry them back home. But there were people in my life. My house burned when I was about 8 years old, and the first person I mentioned in there was one of our neighbors, who we didn't have anything. Everything burned. We didn't have insurance. And my neighbor went around, and that next morning had collected clothes, quarters, dimes, nickels. And that just taught me about caring for your neighbor. And so that was one of the things that I talk about. And there were a lot of other things in the book. I talked about delivering the baby, but another lady who came and brought us toys at Christmas, she had about 8 kids herself. But she thought about us because my parents had said, "You're not going to get anything for Christmas this year." That was the year our house had burned. And she showed up that day. I don't know how she did it, but she brought toys for all of us. So I just talk about important people that I call them ordinary people, but to me they were very important people. And then go on and talk about some things that happened. They're not always positive things. Some some racial things where you were not maybe given some opportunities that you should have had. But out of all of that you persevere, and that your faith, your foundation, and your favor can lead you to a life of really joy and happiness and success if you just draw on all of those things.
Absolutely.
So and
Awesome.
I'm excited about the book.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Thank you for bringing the book.
Yes, and I brought you a copy.
Well, definitely, I'm going to read it as well. Well, let me ask you one last question as we close out, Dr. Wilson. So many times, I've been showcasing young folks here on the show, you know, because we want to inspire the next
Sure.
generation. What would you say to our young people that are watching today that they may have a dream, a goal that may be bottled up?
Sure.
What would you say to them?
I would say take your dream and sit down and try to make a plan as to how you're going to make that dream happen, because I never say, oh, this can't be done. And I don't, when people tell me, oh, we don't do it like that, or we can't do that, there's a way to do it. Look at what your resources are. Look at the people around you. A lot of times you have teachers that are really willing to help you. People will help you if you're trying to help yourself. Mm-hmm. And realize that nothing is really free. If you are willing to work hard, to stay the course, to study hard. There were many times that I wanted to do other things when I was in med school, mm-hmm. but I knew that I had to be focused. I had to stay and study. I had to prepare for those exams. And I didn't have a lot of money and things like that, but I had the love of family, mm-hmm. and I just felt like if you push forward, just stay the course, use your resources that are available to you. Mm-hmm. You can be successful. Absolutely. But you've got to believe in yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very good note to end on. Dr. Wilson, this has been awesome. And I want to thank you very much for coming in and gracing our stage and just inspiring and encouraging our young folks to stay the course, stay focused, and prepare, because those things will help you to birth your dream into a reality.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I just want to say thank you for being on the show today, and I'm hoping that I can get you to come back again at some later time.
Okay. I'd love to.
Very good. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for more C-Week coming up in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Shannon Gavin Johnson, the Director of Legacy Museum on Main, and this is a brief moment in LaGrange's history. It's February, and we're celebrating Black History Month. Ethel Woodrick was born January 17, 1905, the grandchild of former slaves. Her mother died when she was 5, and her father moved away to Chattanooga, leaving her and her brother Anderson to live with their grandparents. Even before completing her college degree, Ethel began teaching at age 23 in 1928 in Coweta County. From 1939 to 1945, she taught at McGregor Street School, which would later become Kelly Grammar School, and rented a room from Mrs. Mabel Wilkerson at 401 Union Street. Miss Woodrick received her B.S. degree from Savannah State in 1942. The same year, she married Albert Ronald Kite. The following summer, she completed a master's degree from Atlanta University. She also completed postgraduate work from Columbia University and the University of Georgia. In the summer of 1945, Troup County Board of Education employed Mrs. Kite as their first and only Jeans supervisor. Jeans Foundation provided support for education and vocational programs for African Americans in rural communities. As Jeans supervisor, Mrs. Kite was in effect the assistant superintendent over all black schools. She held the position until 1970. During her tenure with Troup County, Mrs. Kite oversaw many changes, including the introduction and implementation of teacher in-service, summer school, and a massive merger of rural schools into a single high school. Previously called Mount Beulah, in 1956, that school was renamed to honor Ethel W. Kite in response to a petition of the Troup County Negro Association. Mrs. Kite was also instrumental in implementing the Freedom of Choice program that brought initial, though very limited, desegregation to Troup County. In 1970, she was invaluable as the dual system was merged into one unified and fully integrated school system. Her tireless efforts did not stop at education. She and other volunteers opened a library for the black community that would later be named in her honor. She served as president of the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers from 1967 to 1961 and was president of the Georgia Parents and Teachers Association. She was a member of Warren Temple Methodist Church and Zeta Phi Beta and Continental Society sororities. Mrs. Kite retired in 1977 after 49 years of service in education. During integration and consolidation education, the school bearing Mrs. Kite's name was restructured and renamed. However, in 1996, the Board of Education built a new elementary school and named it for Ethel W. Kite. Ethel Woodrick Kite died October 10, 1990 in LaGrange and was buried with her husband in Sunset Land Cemetery in Noonan. To learn more about Black History Month and African Americans in LaGrange's history, visit Legacy Museum on Main. This has been a brief moment in LaGrange's history.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining City Week this week as we continue to showcase African Americans making history here in our communities and surrounding areas. Today, my guest was none other than Dr. Margarett B. Wilson, as she talked about her life growing up in Mississippi and how she transformed her life to become not only an author, inventor, but also a farmer. She has such a plethora of things that she is involved with. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview and was inspired, young people, to do more to prepare yourselves for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview. And as always, I want to invite you back for more of City Week.